Hey guys, Sam here at NA Studios. Today I want to take a look at iZotope RX and Metallica's Saint Anger. I want to see if I can remove that snare ring completely and be left with a replaced snare that just sounds better than the original. So I've seen a lot of people do this in the past. There are plenty of YouTube videos showing the snare fixed, the snare replaced, whatever. But to me, they're missing out on one key element. They're not actually removing the ring. They're replacing the snare. Well, anyone can do that, and I'm going to show you how to do it. But actually getting rid of that ring is something that we have to do in a bit more of a surgical way. And iZotope RX is a perfect tool for this. So strap in, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Let's get straight to it. So first step then, I'm going to split down this track into its components. If we take a look at RX, this is super easy to do with Music Rebalance. I've got Music Rebalance up here and I can split the track into vocal, bass, percussion and other. Now other tends to be guitars, keyboards, etc. But we're going to come on to that in just a moment. Typically you would assume that the percussion is going to have just drums on it, and in any normal track it would just have drums on it, but Saint Anger is no normal track. So let's first off just separate this. I'm going to go to my best quality and the separation I'm going to take all the way up. I'm going to click render and hear what it's giving me. Okay, so now we have separated our track into vocals, bass, drums, and then the guitars. Let's take a listen to that because we can turn stuff up, we can bring stuff down, and then further to that, we can separate it and split them out onto separate audio files. So there's the guitar. We can just solo that and it will just play the guitar. We can just solo the drums. But the best thing to do here is to separate everything out so you can cleanly preview everything. If you click separate, then that is going to create a separate, essentially RX document, RX file for each of those separate instruments. Okay, so here we've got everything separated out. If I close Music Rebalance now, I can go to the vocal, for example. Let's take a listen to that. I feel my world shake like an earthquake. Nice, and then percussion. Cool, bass, rumbly old bass, and then other instruments, which typically is just guitar. But here's the thing, in that instrument there, I can hear the ring of the snare drum. Take a listen again and you're going to hear it. It's because that's not typically a drum sound. So the algorithm within iZotope RX is saying, okay, that kind of transient stuff, that's going to be the drums. It's not really expecting that it's going to have this sustained, which is going to be actually part of the drum kit. So it's kind of expecting to hear something which it's not getting. And then it's saying, well, that's something tuned and sustained, so it must be in the instruments. It's not RX that's doing it wrong. It's just a weird mix. So we're going to have to go in and deal with that. First of all, though, let's take a look at these snares, and we can do something pretty interesting in RX to identify where all the snares are, which is going to help us later when we put it in the DAW. Okay, so I've zoomed in on this drum track now, and we can see here that I've got some snares. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just take a listen to those. I need to create a marker every time there is a snare, so that when I bring it into my DAW, I know where I need to replace those snares. If I select this snare here, and then go to my measurements and go to find similar, this is going to find sounds that are similar to the one that I've selected. Now the similarity is a big factor here. If I bring it all the way up to 1, this is going to find stuff that is absolutely identical, or basically identical to that. But if I bring it down to 0.1 or down to 0, then it's going to find stuff that's kind of reminiscent of, has similar tonal qualities, but is not absolutely identical. And this is what we want here, because it's not going to be identical, because he's going to hit the snare differently each time, whatever. So let's take the similarity down to 0 and go find all. So that has found the large majority of the snares. I'm well aware there's a few that is missed there. As I go through, there's probably going to be even more that I've missed, but for now, this is absolutely fine. This is what I want. I'm going to have to go in and manipulate this anyway, because I want to get really surgical with this, so that's absolutely fine. And I'm just going to go to add markers. And this is going to add markers at every point where there is a snare drum. So here you can see found event. That's absolutely fine for now. One thing we need to do though is when we're exporting this, we need to do it as an AIFF file. AIFFs will contain the markers within them. They can have tempo embedded and they can have markers embedded. I don't think that WAV files or a lot of other files will actually do that. So that's kind of unique to AIFF. Broadcast WAV I think potentially does it. I'm going to do it as AIFF because then I can bring those markers into Logic, and I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So just for this percussion track, we're going to export everything now, but I'm just going to export this one in a particular way. So let's go export and then AIFF, and then I'm going to click OK on that and export it. So that's fine. That's moving on to the next step, but we need to get rid of some of this ring. And this is the main bit about this video. This is the bit that I don't feel anyone else really does. It's okay to just replace the snares, but if the ring is still there, it's not really solved the problem. So this is where RX is really going to shine. I'm just on the other instruments here. This is the guitar. Let's just take a listen to this section here. You can hear those snares, that kind of pinging. To me, that's kind of around the 1 kilohertz sort of area. So I'm going to zoom in slightly so I can see just this area. I'm going to do that in 2 ways. First of all, I don't want my waveform. So over on the bottom left here, I'm going to bring this all the way up to just the spectral display. Fantastic. And then if I zoom in a little bit further, I'm going to be able to see exactly where these are. Let's hear it again. Okay, let's zoom in on a frequency basis, and then let's bring this down to the kind of 1 kilohertz area. And just by looking, we're going to see where these are. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. To me, the pitch of these is slightly changing. It starts off at a different note for the first one, and then the other 3 are a similar note. Take a listen again. So it looks to me like it's this one here and then these ones. So what I can do is go to my instant process tool, and that's set to gain. So if I go to my utility module and go to gain, I've got that set to -10 dB. That means that when instant process is engaged, I just select an area on that spectrogram and it will reduce that area by -10 dB, which is handy. So first of all, if I get instant process off, just so we can hear it, I'm just going to go to my selection tool here and just see if this is actually what we want. So I'm going to draw a box around that and then just play that section. We can hear that that is indeed where the drums are. And then up here, I think this is where I've got the other rings. Yep, you can hear it. So I'm just going to spend a moment or two just going in and just getting rid of those rings completely, and we're going to hear what it sounds like afterwards. So if I go down to my history tool at the bottom right, I'm going to go to music rebalance. So that's going to take me back to the state before I did any of the gains, and let's hear what it sounded like originally. And then with all the gains engaged. Okay, so we've managed to get rid of that sustained ring. It's still got a little bit of the initial ring in the attack, but that is the bit that we can cover up with the snare drum, which we're going to be replacing on top within Logic. Okay, so I'm going to have to go through the entire track and get rid of all these elements of ring. There are a few shortcuts that we can use in RX to actually help us with this. The first of which is the kind of harmonic tool here. So if we were to select the fundamental frequency of that ring and then select how many harmonics we want above it, we can use that to be a bit of a faster way of doing it. I've not actually opted to do this because I like to go in and do things sort of longhand. It's just me, but there are other ways that we can do it within RX that will kind of help us. So I'm going to spend a bit of time doing that, and I'll see you in Logic in a moment. Okay, so here we are in Logic. Now I need to make use of those marker tracks now. So I'm going to select my St. Anger snare marker track that I've got here. I'm going to go up to Navigate and then Other, and then Import Markers from Audio File. So because this is an AIFF file, or is it AIF? One of the two. Because it's that kind of file that can embed the markers, I can just drag those in using this Logic command. So I'll click that. And you can see up the top here, I've got all of these markers. Now, this is the thing that I'm going to have to finesse just slightly because I couldn't get it to recognize every single snare drum. So I'm going to put a snare sample on every single one of those markers, and then I'm going to go in and find which markers it missed. Now, there's some fast thrashy bits in this, so that's going to take a little bit of time. There are some that it's not quite got, so that's going to take a little bit of time. But if anyone knows of a quick way of doing this, because I can't for the life of me figure it out, I think there may be a way that you can do it in like scripting or something in Reaper, but I've not found a DAW that can actually achieve this. Please, 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 if you know one that can and you know what can help save me some time for next time, drop it in the comments below because I'd really love to know what the fast way of doing this is. But I don't know the fast way, so I'm going to do it the long way. See you in a minute. So I've got those snares pasted in now, and you can see them down at the bottom here. What I've done is I've just dragged in kind of any old snare sample. This is actually one from my pack. It was just something that I had available. And then I've put trigger on that as well so that I can kind of blend in the sound of a few different sounds there. Not sure what pack they're from, but they sound good. So I've got the actual snare now. This is all the triggers. That's just the snare that I thought sounded pretty cool. And then that's going over the top of every single snare hit. So within this, let's just navigate the session a touch. Up the top, I've got the original. This is St. Anger, the actual track. Then I've got the bass, that's come from RX. I've got other instruments that's come from RX, the original, so that's without any of the snares taken out. Then this is other instruments with the snares removed, and I've gone in and taken out every single snare there. This is the percussion track, the original percussion track, which doesn't have any of the ring because it's all on the other ones because it's not really percussion. Then I've got the vocal, which actually had quite a lot of the ring on it as well, so I've had to go in there and take out all the ring on that one as well. Took a long time. And then I've got my snare marker track, and then I've got my snare as it stands now. So finally, I'm going to play you a section of this song with and without the snare ring. The first one you'll hear will be the original track with all that snare ring present. Then after that, you'll hear my version with the replaced snare, and more importantly, RX has surgically gotten rid of all that ring that was originally present. Let's take a listen. Alright, thanks so much for checking it out. A bit of fun on my part really, something that I've been wanting to do for a while to see if we can actually kind of surgically go in and remove all this stuff. Turns out we can. Turns out we got something pretty good at the end of it. I think if I were to go in again, I would be far more surgical and try and go in and really get rid of absolutely every single element there. I've not been as surgical as perhaps I could have been, and RX is more than capable of getting rid of this completely, but it may have taken me quite a long time and a lot longer than I kind of had time to do. But there you go. RX is a fantastic tool for getting rid of this kind of stuff. And here it is in practice on a real world example of getting rid of some of that horrible snare ring in St. Anger. Hope it's been fun to watch, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.